Today on the Back to Paranormal podcast, we're going to be talking about ghosts and spirits and the historic stories behind all these haunts on Long Island, New York, with Carrie Ann Flanagan Broski on the Back to Paranormal podcast. Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to Paranormal. My name is Brian Mitchell, and I am the co-host, and my other co-host is the lovely...
Marjorie.
There she is.
Hello.
Hi, you're looking very pretty tonight.
Good evening, thank you.
Today we have a real special show. We have an author on here that she's also a paranormal investigator. But she comes from a history background where she was documenting all this stuff on Long Island. And she kept bumping into all these ghost stories and experiences at some of these places on Long Island. She wrote this wonderful book. We're actually going to have her on. This is part one of two parts. And she has two books. The one we're going to be talking about today, Historic Haunts of Long Island, Ghosts and Legends from the Gold Coast to Montauk Point. And if you don't know where Long Island is, it's basically part of New York. So you have New York City, and then you have Brooklyn, Queens, and Nassau and Suffolk County, and that comprises all of Long Island. So there you go. So how are you doing today? All right?
I am well. How's your night?
I'm doing great. I feel good.
Good.
Do you feel good?
I do. It was a beautiful day.
A beautiful day.
Absolutely beautiful. Practically like summertime.
Yeah. It's October, toward the end of October here, and we're still having these summer-like temperatures outside, and a very clear day today. No sign of rain for the last couple of days, that's for sure. So, you made us some drinks tonight. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the drinks that we have.
Okay.
So the reason why we do the drinks, and people have asked us this, and we did ask us questions about the podcast. We did a show like that, and but I just want to kind of say the reason why we do drinks is basically we're trying to draw you in, and maybe this is an opportunity for you to pour a glass of soda pop, or if you want to have a tea or water, or to join us in this little adventure that we take every week. And we just like to have a cocktail here and then, so or maybe even a beer, but please join us in this. And what'd you make today, Marjorie?
Yeah, we really just do it so that you feel like you're visiting with us, and I've prepared something for you. So tonight, in honor of spook season, and also in honor of the book that we're going to be discussing and the interview with Carrie Ann Flanagan Broski, I have made a Ghost in the Graveyard cocktail.
It actually looks pretty spooky.
It does look pretty spooky.
And what is that comprised of?
It's vodka, Kahlua, shaken in a cocktail shaker with a lot of ice, and then poured into a glass that has a scoop of vanilla ice cream in it. Ooh. And as you pour, the vanilla ice cream comes up, and you can see this ghost flying around. It's pretty amazing. In the atmosphere.
Yeah, so keeping with the theme. So
I haven't tasted it. I don't know. I'm not going to make any promises, but let's
here we
boop.
go. Okay, so we're going to boop.
We're going to boop.
The boop is a toast. Here we go, to us and to our listeners. And here we go.
To our lovely listeners.
Here we go. Wow.
That's something. That's sweet.
That's almost like a White Russian.
I think it's a Black Russian, but with a scoop of ice cream.
Oh, is that it? Okay. Well, it's actually pretty good.
I like it. It's like our dessert. It's like our dessert.
It's our dessert
in beverage form.
Yeah, and it feels like getting a real little hit from that vodka.
A warm
And the Kahlua.
The warm. Well, that's what the spirits do to you.
Yeah. Okay.
They can make you cold. They can make you feel warm. As I read this book, I have learned that there are things that happen.
Yeah. So, spirit, we're talking about spirits and we're having spirits.
That was
yeah.
pretty broad.
No, I think it's great.
Honestly, reading this book, I love the history. I am a big lover of history.
Me too.
I know you are.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll practically drive off a highway. If there's an historic plaque, I have to keep my eyes on the road. No,
yeah.
I love it. I love it. And, I am ashamed to admit, I know some Long Island history.
Yeah.
Just because of the Revolutionary War and just things.
Right.
But I feel like I've learned a ton of history just by reading this wonderful book.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of good bits and pieces here. They basically in this book, Carrie Ann goes to like the lighthouse, the firehouse lighthouse, right?
Execution Rocks Lighthouse. She goes to Fire Island.
Oh, she goes to Fire Island, right?
Lighthouse and the Execution Rocks.
Yeah, and she covers a lot of ground from Montauk to the Hamptons, and then and all over Long Island.
Yeah.
And all these different stories. And
some amazing. Yeah, some really amazing stories. I think the one that really captivated me the most was the Ketchum Inn, which is over in Center Moriches. And I've never been there, but
right.
It just, for some reason, it really resonated with me. And a lot of the stories that she's telling are not really spooky. Yeah. Because a lot of the places that she visits with her partner in crime, Joe Giaquinto, it gives them a happy family feeling.
Right.
And there was one place that's on this list. I know you have a different experience, but I went to an event at Coe Hall, which is in Oyster
Bay Planting Fields.
The Planting Fields Arboretum. Yeah. And it was, first of all, I've always loved the Planting Fields Arboretum. It's absolutely beautiful. But I went to an event at Coe Hall, and so many people were there, and they were all saying, "This place is really spooky. This place is really spooky." And I was like, I don't feel that way. I feel great just because it's built in a certain type of architecture and it's not been inhabited by a family, or doesn't mean that it's this foreboding edifice. It's just, it's how you feel. I felt perfectly happy being there, but I know you had
I think we talk about it in the interview.
Oh, that's right. Oh, excuse me. We do.
But yeah, I had a very, very different experience, and yeah, it was a little scary actually, because I kind of sense I have to admit, when I go into an area, it's almost like if I think it's haunted, the hair will stand up in the back, not the back of the neck. I have a hairy back, so it all stands up, and yeah, I feel
That's
it.
a lot of liftoff.
It's a lot of liftoff, folks. Yeah, I look like the wild man from Transylvania or something, So anyway, no, we had a wonderful time talking with Carrie Ann, and she was just loaded with stories, and she could only spend a certain amount of time with us, but we decided to separate the interview into two parts. So today we're focusing on the historic haunts of Long Island, but she's going to be talking about both books. And but she, I guess, in doing the research, she's kind of become like an investigator, because she's experienced stuff. I think there's stuff on her website where there are EVPs, which are electronic voice phenomenon, and basically you can hear this stuff on her website, and we'll give you the link to that later. But I think we should just get right into it. What do you think?
I heard some of the so now this is very interesting, because I met Carrie Ann Flanagan Broski because one night, and we did do an episode where we discussed telepathy between people who are linked.
Yeah.
And there was an instance where I really wanted to go to this one Barnes and Noble that I really like, and there are like 3 others all around, and they're maybe a little closer, but that's the one I wanted to go to, but I didn't mention it all day.
Right.
And then when you were on your way home, you called me and you asked me if we could please go there. And I was like, that's crazy, because that's what I've wanted to do all day. But
I think
and when we went there,
right,
we went there, and we were looking for some books, and then the manager informed us that Carrie Ann Broski would be there that Saturday discussing her latest book that she's promoting. And so I said, well, gosh, I want to meet this person. And so I went there and I met her, and I met her partner, Joe Giaquinto, and they were both lovely. And so we bought the books, and that's how we met. So it kind of, the connection between them and us happened through a telepathic communication that we shared a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, I get a lot of these lately. I mean, basically, there was another instance of, I'm an animator, and I worked on a show years ago, about 30 years ago, and some interesting things came up recently where somebody contacted me asking me about it. Where can I see this? There's only bits and pieces on the internet. And one thing led to another. Then all of a sudden I found the original producer of the show contacting me. Just really all kind of weird, all happening kind of, independent of each other, but somehow linked.
Independent of each other, but web-like.
Yeah, and so I kind of got involved with it again. But I was like, I haven't heard from this guy in like 30 years. And so it's just crazy stuff that happens. And it's almost the same thing with this book thing, because I was driving home and I'm thinking, I want to go to Barnes & Noble. And I guess I could say that on there. But I want to go to this bookstore, and I was just basically, there was one right by me, but I figured maybe Marjorie might want to go. And then I called her, and she said, no, that's what I wanted to go to, that one that you're talking about, which is, a half hour away from us. So we ended up going, and then all this stuff just happened where basically we found out about Carrie Ann and her books, and she was going to be there the following week. And so just, I think, really kind of magical, wild, and wonderful. Yeah, exactly.
Happily serendipitous.
Happily, and we were so glad to meet them and talk to them and have them on the show. So anyway, what do you think? You think we should get right to it?
I think we should get right to it.
This is going to be a 2-parter, and we'll talk a little bit about it after you hear the first part of it, and so let's get to it. All right?
Okay.
All right. Well, we are pleased to present on today's episode of Back to Paranormal an author of, ghost stories and mysteries, ghostly mysteries on Long Island. She's written a bunch of books on the subject. She's done some paranormal investigations, I believe. And so we are glad to have her on. So please welcome Carrie Ann Flanagan Broski. How are you today?
Brian. Thank you, Marjorie. It's great to be here and to talk to you both today.
It's great to be anywhere, I think. Yeah, yes. But thank you for doing this. We've been looking through your books, and you delve into the history of these areas. Can you tell us how you got into this? Because I know you've done other things. I know you've written about food and history of Long Island, and So tell us how you got into
Yeah,
the ghostly
it's
stuff.
sort of you just never know how your career is going to go.
Hmm.
My degree is actually in photography. I specialized in photojournalism,
Wow.
and I studied under the renowned photographer Arthur Leipzig. And I
Oh,
did work as a photographer, as an intern for photographer for Newsday when I got out of college. I went to Long Island University at CW Post.
wow.
And then when I moved to Huntington outside of school, I started working for the Long Islander newspaper, which was founded by Walt Whitman. I was
Hmm.
hired as a photographer, but because it was within the town of Huntington, I became interested in Huntington's history.
Hmm.
I got involved with the Huntington Historical Society, and I was first vice president for 6 years. And I started writing a column for the paper about the town's history in the hopes of educating the public to preserve our history in Huntington.
Hmm.
That eventually led me to write two books in 1993 and 1995, I think it was, on Huntington's history.
Hmm.
And each book had, I believe, about 20 stories of places that were still in existence. And I photographed all these places, did all the research, and I began going out on a lecture circuit for this again with the hopes of preserving and educating the public on local history.
Wow.
So, as time went on, the Historical Society said to me, you know what, you're doing such a great job with the lectures, but we know that each of the books have maybe two or three ghost stories in there. Now, this was something that always interested me since I was a child.
Hmm.
And when you're researching older homes and things, there always seems to be a ghost story or two that comes with it.
Yeah.
So I had said to them, yeah, I think that would be fun. I also love Halloween. So
Hmm.
my husband and I rigged up the Conklin barn, which is a historic barn owned by the Huntington Historical Society. And we had webs and we had fishing lines, so different things would be happening while I was speaking.
Hmm.
The barn seats about 50 people. We had over 100 people show up for
Wow.
this lecture.
Wow.
And I was shocked at how many people were interested in learning about ghosts. So this became an annual event that I did for several years.
Hmm.
And people would say to me all the time, why don't you write a book just about ghosts and history? And I said I would love to do that, but I said I wanted to be taken serious as both a journalist and as an author. I didn't want to be considered as a ghostbuster, so to speak.
Hmm.
So I put it on the back burner. And as time went on, I decided, there were shows like Medium and paranormal investigating shows. And I said, you weren't thought of as being crazy anymore if you believed in this.
Hmm.
So I said, you know what, I'm going to do this, but I needed help. I needed someone to teach me about the paranormal end of things. And in 2005, as luck would have it, in walked Joe Giaquinto, who was a medium and paranormal investigator. He was from Hampton Bays.
Hmm.
And he came to my lecture at the Conklin Barn, and I asked him right on the spot if he would want to work with me on a ghost related project. And he said yes. So we started working together 20 years ago now.
Wow.
And I wrote the first Ghosts of Long Island Stories of the Paranormal. And that had a lot of history going back from our Native American past, the American Revolutionary War. But that original book had legends and myths. So it did have Mary's Grave, Sweet Hollow Road,
Hmm.
Kings Park Psychiatric Center.
Oh, yes.
But as my books have evolved, I wanted to show that Long Island is more than the Amityville horror,
Right.
that it's rich in
Right.
history.
Yes.
And that was very important to me. So after that book, I took a little side trip. Cooking and food are a big part of my life.
Hmm.
So I co-authored an Italian cookbook with Mr. Sausage in Huntington. And no, it's not a haunted cookbook, but I do have a lot of haunted restaurants in my ghost books.
Right.
And I was a food writer with my own column for Edible Long Island for 5 years.
Wow.
So I got the cooking out of the way, and then there were so many people telling me, do you have this in your ghost book? Do you have that? And so I said, you know what? There's still so many places to explore. And my publisher at the time was Maple Hill Press. And I asked Joe, I said, would you want to work with me on another one? And he said yes. So we did the second Ghosts of Long Island book.
Right.
After that, my publisher, it was a smaller press publisher, and they were retiring. And I was pursued by the History Press, which is part of Arcadia, for years. They wanted to work with me on this. So I had agreed to work with them. And that's when I put together Historic Haunts of Long Island, which is actually a combination of 10 stories from the first ghost book, 10 from the second, and 10 brand new ones.
Wow.
After that, I wrote a historic crime book that my publisher had asked me to write. That's from the 1600s to the 1950s. Very different writing that project. That didn't have anything to do with Joe. And then I wrote Haunted Long Island Mysteries, which I am that came out just a few years ago, but I'm currently on book tour for that with 21 schedule events from October through November.
Wow.
In between that, I also did write my first novel called The Metal, which has
The
the true
meadow or
story,
the medal? Excuse
the
me.
metal, the metal,
Oh,
the
okay.
metal, Medal.
Okay.
Okay.
And it has to do with Padre Pio, the saint who bore the stigmata.
Right.
And
Yes.
it's a work of fiction, but it's actually based on a true story of a real miracle that happened to me the night my father died 20 years ago, having to do with a Padre Pio medal.
Wow.
The true story of Padre Pio is woven throughout as told by an Italian angel who actually came into my life. So the character, the main character, Bethany Fitzpatrick, is actually a combination of myself and my mother when my mother was alive. And she is a pastry chef with her own bakery in Northport. And people have figured out it is based off of Copenhagen Bakery in Northport. We even did a book signing there years
I
ago.
just want to interject because this is
Uh-huh.
very odd. I was up late. I had to stay up late with a project and that I was in the middle of, and I was debating whether I had a documentary on the TV or a film about Padre
Oh,
Pio.
Oh,
really?
really?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
I went with the documentary because I
It's
knew
fascinating.
I had to give my 100% focus to the Padre Pio, and I was like, I'll save that for another time. And that is very interesting. That
Well,
was
watch.
just
Well,
Well,
last night.
hopefully you can have me back on. We could talk about that further.
I
But
would love
yeah,
to.
yeah.
as many paranormal experiences that I've had a lot of religious experiences too.
Wow.
And so now I'm actually working on. It should be coming out by the end of November. My 10th book, which is another faith-based, because this is a faith-based novel.
Sure.
Anyone who's a caretaker or who has lost their faith, it's a very powerful faith-based book. So
Wow.
I wrote a companion book to it, which is very different from what I've been doing. It's a daily journal, like a daily book, where it has 365 of Padre Pio's quotes, and
Oh,
then my
wow.
interpretation of that quote to help people get through grief, anxiety, trials, suffering, depression, job loss, problems with children. So it's a very personal project, and it's a way for me to really reach out to people and expand what I've been doing. So
Wow.
over the course of my career, it's changed and evolved, and even the ghost related books, we have some stories in there where I did interview some people about their personal connections with those they have lost, those who have gone off to
Yeah.
the other side. And
Wow.
they're very powerful. And everything that Joe and I do is very positive. We stay away from anything that's negative or demonic in nature.
We try to do that here at
Yeah,
the show. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. Because people will come up to me that don't know any better and say, "Oh, I saw paranormal activity. Is that what you do?" I'm like, "No." I
Right.
don't see pots and pans flying around the room and blood dripping off walls and being chased by a ghost with a knife. It's
Yeah.
just not like that. That's TV, that's Hollywood.
Right.
What we do is very, we take a spiritual approach as opposed to a scientific
Yeah.
approach. And again, my logo is teaching local history through ghost stories, and what better way to teach local history than through a ghost story because people are fascinated with it.
If that's how people learn history, then if
Yeah,
that's what works,
and it's
I
worked.
one of my degrees was in history, as I had explained to you, and I do believe it's the way to, first of all, maintain your humanity, which in this day and age when people are so heavily reliant on social media and inaccurate Wikipedia pages or what have you, it's so important because it in order to maintain that humanity, you're helping us to remember that we're all humans and everybody and everything has a history and every place, and it gives you sensitivity and understanding. It also
Yes, it's so
explains how
true.
we got here, and it also helps to find out where we're going if you think about the faith part of it.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's all connected. It really is. I mean, last night I was at Halleckville Farm on the North Fork, and to be part of this event with this historic barn and have people coming out to learn about history, it's really wonderful. You know, people really enjoy it. I take the reader on the actual journey of what it's like to go to these places and to do the interviews, and people have just loved it. And like I said, we're helping to preserve this history because without it, where are we? Like you said, Marjorie.
Are you active like in, I don't want to call it ghost hunting. I want to call it like paranormal investigations. So we'll say that. Are
Yes,
you active
yes,
that
that's
way?
I am when I'm working on the ghost projects. I
Right.
don't do it when I'm not working on the ghost related projects.
Right.
Again, it was something that I was fascinated with. So how we would generally work this with the book projects, let's say. I would find different places either through the historical societies, through things I researched, sometimes through people saying, you know, I've heard about this house and I would vet it out and check it out. At that point, I would set up an investigation where Joe and I would go to, it could be a home, it could be a restaurant, a place of business, any number of places. Historical properties are obviously are a big one in the book, many of them open to the public. And then we would sit and I would conduct a recorded interview with the people that own it
Right.
and find out about the history first, find out about their experiences with the paranormal. After that, Joe and I would go around and we use minimal equipment. Since I'm a professional photographer, using my camera is important. I shoot with a Nikon D80 and a Nikon Coolpix. And you say, well, why, if I'm a professional photographer, am I using a Coolpix? Because it's easier for the spirits
To
to
figure out
manipulate
how to,
a
yeah,
smaller camera,
that's
exactly,
Yeah.
than the
amazing.
larger one, just like a person, because they are
I
people.
love that.
So yeah, so I get more orbs and things like that with the small camera. So we use that. Then we have the recorders itself, which we've picked up. Even I've picked up white noise EVPs. When Joe first told me about those, I thought he was out of his mind until it happened to me, and I got the voice of a little girl saying, "Hold me," in a place that wasn't even had any paranormal activity in it.
Right.
I was interviewing someone in a house that was fine about a previous house that they had lived in. And so we get these white noise EVPs. And then we also use an electromagnetic field indicator, which picks up energy in a room. So you'd have to, you know, if you put it next to outlets or computers or that kind of thing, it would beep. So you have to rule out anything that could possibly set it off. So we use that. And then the other thing that we started to use for the last two ghost books were was the ghost box, which is
I was just
basically
about to ask about
yeah,
that.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that has been fascinating. That is a transistor radio where one of the wires has been cut. So it's been manipulated and it continuously scans. Okay.
Right.
So if you remember what that would sound like, you know, you'd hear bits and parts of a song, of a weather report, of a sports report, of a commercial. So you'd hear bits of these words
Yeah.
all running together as it continuously scans. So that is live time ghost communication. So with the white noise EVPs, the spirits can leave voices on that. We've gotten many. I mean, this is Joe's area of expertise, but I've gotten so many. Katie's Bar, we had talked about earlier, you
We
know,
we
before
were
the
there.
show.
We were there a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I'll tell you about a good one with that.
Yeah.
But so that one you don't hear until you play it back. With the ghost box, it's actually live time communication. So, for instance, if we connect with a spirit and the scanner is going, and they'll say there's a weather report that says today is going to be beautiful out, because it's continuously scanning, it's not going to say that, it's not going to be that entire sentence. The timing of it and how the spirits can manipulate it is that Joe can say to the spirits, "What is heaven like?" And the spirit will pick out beautiful out of that weather report.
Hmm.
So that's how we've gotten things. And it's fascinating. We've done this with a lot of skeptics.
Hmm.
And when they've experienced it, they're blown away by it.
Yeah.
And they're because they're just people, um, communicating with us from the other side. They're the way they are. Their personalities are intact. Some of them, when we play these for during our lectures, people are amazed. They're laughing, they're heartwarming, some of
Hmm.
them. And so we've gotten really good results working with the Ghost Box. And what's nice about the books is that they're interactive.
Hmm.
So the last two books, they have the transcripts written in them from our communication. People could go onto my website, ghostsoflongisland.com, or under my name, Carrie Ann Flanagan Broski.
Hmm.
And if you look at the books and scroll down, there'll be a button that says EVPs. That will connect you to Joe's website, and you could actually read the book and follow along and listen to our actual Ghost Box recordings.
Wow.
So it's
Wow.
very fascinating. And the first time people listen to it, sometimes they're like, "Oh my God, this is spooky." But again, when you think of it that they're just people, because there are a difference between ghosts and spirits. That's
Hmm.
the other thing. People are confused as to what a ghost is. So a ghost is a person that is place centered, meaning for reasons unknown, they refuse to cross over to the other side. So
Okay.
an example of this would be Annette Williamson, who haunts the Country House restaurant in Stony Brook. She was brutally murdered there during the Revolutionary War, and for reasons unknown, she has decided to remain there.
Wow.
Spirits, on the other hand, are different. Okay.
Hmm.
Spirits are our own band of people.
Hmm.
And so, because I'm born and raised in a practicing Catholic, I'm going to put it in those terms of heaven. But whatever you believe is fine.
Hmm.
Um, but if back in the 1950s, let's say, if you happened to see an apparition of your grandfather or sensed your mother in the room,
Hmm.
people would get all upset and say, "Quick, go and get the priests. They didn't make it to heaven." Well, if your loved one
Hmm.
was a good person on this earth, of course they're going to go where they're supposed to be, with God in paradise.
Right.
But with all the onset of technology and everything is based on energy and spirits and ghosts are based on energy,
Hmm.
they're able to use this technology and we're breaking that veil a little bit to show that our loved ones are not that far away. They're with us all the time. They're still in heaven, if that's what you believe. That's what I believe.
Right.
They're in paradise, but they see everything that goes on. They're a part of our lives. They give us signs. A lot of times we're just not open to it, or people think, "Oh, no, that's a coincidence," or they're not paying attention. But
Yeah.
Joe and I have been doing this for 20 years. We've investigated over 100 places, presumably haunted on Long Island. I hate to even use the word haunted, but the communication is amazing. And they're just people and they're there for us. And it really, the books have been comforting to people.
Hmm.
The ghost books have become comforting to some people because they realize that life does exist after this and that we don't truly die. So that's why there's different things. There's the
Yeah.
ghosts and then the spirit. There's also 10 different types of ghosts. This list was compiled by a very famous paranormal investigator by the name of Peter Underwood.
Oh,
He
wow.
was from London, England. He
Wow.
wrote multiple books. He took it from a
Hmm.
scientific approach, but he realized that you couldn't even say that a ghost was any one thing. So he categorized this into 10 types of ghosts. Joe and I actually did a webinar on this. It's on my YouTube station during COVID.
Wow.
And the one that most people would know would be historical ghosts. So Annette Williamson is one, the ghosts of Gettysburg, that type of thing.
Hmm.
But there's modern ghosts. Those are people that have recently died that maybe did not get to say goodbye to their loved one. So they appear to them
Hmm.
at night before crossing over.
Right.
There's animal ghosts. Animals cross with us to the other side, and we are greeted by our pets,
Hmm.
which is comforting. There's recurring ghosts that happen to be seen the same time every year. There's ghosts of inanimate objects, and no, it's not the Chucky doll. dolls do not come alive. Okay? As much as the movies want us to believe that things don't, inanimate objects
You
cannot
have
become alive.
you've made Marjorie feel so much better.
There you go. You don't have to worry about
No,
these
they're
things,
still going to
Margaret.
creep me out. They've always
There you
creeped
go.
me out.
Exactly. Well, that's like my husband. He hates clowns, anything with
I
clowns.
don't like clowns.
Exactly.
I
But
don't
what happens in
understand
those
why they have
cases,
to
why
I-
they
live.
say it's a ghost of inanimate objects, is because it's just sometimes transference of energy, which causes phenomenon, not causes a ghost.
Right.
And then there's, poltergeist is another one. But out of the 10 types of ghosts, that is probably the lowest one on the totem pole as far
Right.
as what people experience.
Yeah.
Does it happen? Yes. Again, we avoid that. I want nothing to do with things like that.
Yeah.
So it's not
Joe-
as common
Joe
as
was-
the movies make it out.
Joe was telling us of a I guess he was living in an apartment. He rented an apartment and
Yes,
had
he had
poltergeist.
an experience.
Yeah, so he
Yes.
had the flying objects
the
and
Yes,
things.
he had that
and
once. And
Katie's
he got
appa-
out of there.
Katie's bar up there in Smithtown, Long Island, they have the flying objects too. But I just want to go back a little bit because you were saying something about when somebody passes, they could be in heaven, but from the way I understand it, they can be in many places
Yeah.
at the same time. And Marjorie has had an experience like that where a spirit was with her and with a friend that was miles away.
Yes.
Right.
At the same time, they were on the
Yes.
phone
Yes.
together.
Yes,
So
I know that can happen. In fact, Padre Pio too, he had the gift of bilocation while he was alive.
wow.
He was able
Wow.
to be in two places at one time, and this was well documented by the church. But yeah, it's a perfect place, so you can come and go, and things that you didn't get to do on this lifetime, if you wanted to go to a different country, you can really do whatever you want to
Yes,
do.
I did. We interviewed a psychic medium once, and I wanted to know about that. I said, if your loved one is speaking to you, don't you want them to be in heaven, in paradise with their maker and in bliss eternally? And she just said it's energy, that it's all over.
Yeah.
And she made it very simple, and I was like, oh, okay.
Right, and that's what it is, and it's comforting. Like when I
It
take
is
photos.
comforting.
And we get the orbs, which are thought to be light anomalies, and they're thought to be spirits. And each one is different, like a person. And when I've pointed it out to people, I said, take out some. I did this with my mother-in-law once. I said, let's look at some family photos from holidays and birthdays. I said, oh my God, look at that. There's one on the back wall. So
Right.
I tell people, well, if Uncle Harry was the life of the party for years and then he passed, why wouldn't he want to drop in at another holiday party? And that's, they're able to show themselves a
Yes.
little bit in these ways, and it's a beautiful thing, that they're just waiting for us. And the important thing is we miss them, we grieve, but we have to live our lives.
Right.
We have to see what good we can do during our lifetime until we meet with them again. And
Do you feel that when we're here on this earthly plane, that we have a mission, that we're assigned some sort of
Divine purpose.
yes,
yes, I absolutely do. And I like that you use that word, Marjorie, divine purpose, because this is a common thread that I have in my upcoming book, the Padre Pio Daily Reflections, because I truly do believe that we have a divine purpose and we're guided in certain directions. Sometimes we don't always agree with it. Sometimes we don't always like it. Sometimes things go wrong on that. And it's all about how we handle it and whether we try to handle it alone or we try to do it with God. And if you fight God, then you're going to make things harder for yourself. And I've done this,
Yeah.
I have. We all have done this.
sure,
But if you try to let go a bit and go with it, then you'll have an easier time in the long run and you'll see the purpose to things. If someone would have told me that I would have done this work back when I was in college, I would have said, what are you, insane? Ghosts and saints with the stigmata. I mean, I would not have believed it, but I went through it. And that's why even some people have questioned me like, oh, well, you went to Catholic school and you're a Catholic, practicing Catholic. How do you justify
right,
this work that you do? And it's an interesting question because, again, there are people that think, oh, well, this is evil. This is like
Yeah.
But what I do is not. It's this is where God has guided me, and I had to
Hmm.
know all of these things ahead of time in order for me to know what I was doing with these faith-based books.
I
Like
ha-
it's
I just have to interject. Just before you said that, I was going to say to you, if you told me 35 years ago I'd be doing a podcast about paranormal,
right.
I was going to say that, and then all of a sudden you said it. And
Right. Yes, exactly.
Yes.
this is not a recent phenomenon. This is not just a one-off phenomenon. This happens to me all the time. This happened with we had a psychic medium on named Jennifer Ann. And it was like every time I went to ask her a question, she was answering
She
the
was-
question.
yeah.
It was just crazy.
And what's crazy is I know him so well that I could feel that question coming up in him, you know, and be like, oh, he's going to ask her. And then she would just answer.
She just answered.
so
And that's why
funny.
when you were,
Why are we having a podcast? Let's just
Well,
all
great
just
minds
read
think
each other's
alike.
minds.
it'll just, you tune in, it's just a psychic thing going
Right,
on.
exactly. Well, like I said, great minds think alike.
Ah, there you go. No, it was just, so I was actually like shaking my head, like, I can't believe that she just all of a sudden said this when I was going to say
It
this.
was
So,
great. It was
yeah.
great.
There you go.
That was fun.
It was fun, and we're going to have part 2 next week. But what did you think of the first part?
Well, what I think was so interesting is how the steps that were taken for her to get to this point where she's writing books like this.
Yeah.
That address this. And a couple things I really like. First of all, she was in photojournalism and then, you know, started to delve into the history of Huntington.
Right.
Where there's a lot. You know, there's a lot of history all over Long Island, and I'm very glad to be exposed little by little to some of it.
Right.
I've really been enjoying it. But I've always felt that somebody who, you know, studies history or has an interest in history, pursues it, is someone who wants to, not just by preserving the knowledge of what has happened, but also to preserve their humanity. And in discussing the history, then promote humanity among others through understanding, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that she's one who's an historian is obviously wanting to do that for those who are living, you know, because the past influences where we are and might also have indication of where we're going through this little time we have here on Earth. But also, the thing that I really find fascinating about Carrie Ann is she's not just doing that to preserve our humanity towards each other, towards man,
Right.
but also towards these very much still living entities that inhabit these historical places.
Yeah.
And sort of to give our humanity, to extend it to that next place, to that next realm, take it a step further, and by having an understanding to kind of take away the fear and the kind of negative connotations that ghost and spirit have and in popular culture, rather to kind of give somebody an understanding of this place and the human activity that went on there and that's still resonating today. And I just think that's a very touching and sensitive and valuable way to think about history and time and what has happened, what is still resonating in our space.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
I didn't mean to sound preacherly. I apologize.
well, the book Historic Haunts of Long Island by Carrie Ann Flanagan Brodsky is available on Amazon. I think it's also available on her website. Her website is basically her name, right? It's www, or is it Ghosts of Long Island? I think it's. I think if you go to either or, you'll find it. But if you don't see it there,
when I was trying to look her up and I put Carrie Ann it came right up.
Carrie Ann Flanagan.
I just put in Carrie Ann
Fla.
Yeah, and then the whole thing.
It just popped in.
Yep.
Yeah.
The full Monty.
Yeah, so I think you can get the book off her website. I think, didn't she say she would autograph it if you bought it directly
Oh,
from her?
she did. If
Yeah.
you buy it from her website,
Yeah. So it's historic.
She signed our book.
She signed our copies. Yeah. Historic Haunts of Long Island. It's a fascinating book. It's very, very neat. It's paperback, and I think it's somewhere around 219 pages, 220 pages of material.
If you buy it, if you just buy it for one story, my big recommendation would be the Catch 'Em In, but I'm not trying to put any pressure on anybody.
Yeah, I mean, no, there's a story for everybody, but I mean, if you read it from beginning to end, you'll really enjoy it. And next week we're going to talk about her other book, which is another wonderful book.
And we will be interviewing, good Lord willing, she'll have the time for us to interview her again later on about another book, a very unrelated topic, but I'm very excited about that.
Well, it's a book of miracles.
It's a book of miracles.
Yes, so we're going to have her back for that.
We all need some of those.
But she's going to be back next week for part 2, so please come back for that.
Stay tuned.
And so a couple of things here, a couple of notes. We have a Facebook page. Please check that out. Join us there. You can subscribe on so many different services out there. So, if you really like the show, check out some of our other shows. We have about 25 others that you can check out. And some of them are really a hoot, and some of them give you a little chill, and some of them are just, just good information. So please check out all our other episodes. Like I said, about 25 others right now. And
25?
25, yeah.
Wow.
It's pretty incredible, right? We've 25 shows. These kind of went by like a breeze.
We did. We started this just to kind of hack around.
Yeah, and we've really enjoyed doing these shows for you, and we're trying to expand by bringing on guests and stuff like that. And Carrie Ann is a great guest, but we're going to have another guest who basically collaborated on these shows in a couple of weeks. And on these books, sorry.
Yes, her co-conspirator.
Yes.
We will be discussing his talent and gifts in psychic.
Yeah, because he's a psychic medium and an investigator as well. So we're going to have him on. So stay tuned for that. And anything else you want to add?
Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. We love to do these shows for you. We really enjoy them, and we hope you're enjoying them too. And if you have any comments, please leave us a comment, whether you love or if you hate it or whatever.
The good, the bad, the ugly. We only want to get better for you all.
Yeah, we want to get better for you. So anyway, well, that should be it, right? What do you think?
Yes, love.
Yes. Well, you're very pretty. I love doing these shows with you. Yeah.
I love doing them. I love doing everything.
And this drink has left me a little loopy. I'm all drunk now.
Sorry.
So, anyway, want everybody to have a great day and a great evening. And please come back to the next episode of Back to Paranormal. Good night, everybody.
Good night. God bless you.
God bless you.